The restaurant was quiet. Adrian Blake sat alone at a corner table, a glass of red wine in front of him barely touched. 2 minutes ago, the woman across from him had stood up, offered a polite but final smile, and walked out the door the moment she learned he had once been a single father. Then the woman at the next table turned toward him, met his eyes, and said it without blinking. "I need a husband tomorrow." Adrian looked at her a little. Looked, and the only thing he could manage was, "Wait, does that mean we'll have to live together?" She was laughing before he could even form a response. Not the polite kind of laugh people use to soften an awkward moment. This was real, unguarded. The kind that made the couple at the table across the room look over briefly before going back to their food. Adrian Blake sat very still, his hand resting near the base of his wine glass, trying to decide whether he had just been made fun of or whether something stranger was happening. The woman at the next table turned her body toward him, more fully, still smiling, and set down her own glass. She had been sitting alone, too. He realized he just hadn't noticed until now. Dark blazer hair pulled back, but not stiffly, a half-finished glass of white wine, and what looked like an untouched bread roll. Someone who came here to eat and ended up not eating. "I'm sorry," she said, and she sounded like she actually meant it. "That was terrible of me. But your face, you looked like I'd just handed you a subpoena." Adrian looked at her evenly. "You told me you needed a husband. Tomorrow. And you immediately asked if we'd have to live together." She tilted her head slightly. "So technically we're both guilty." He didn't smile yet, but something in his expression shifted the tight, closed-off look that had been sitting on his face since the other woman left. He picked up his wine glass and took a slow sip, mostly just to give his hand something to do. The restaurant around them was half full and getting quieter as the evening wore on, the kind of Tuesday night crowd that tends to clear out before 10. "I heard some of it," the woman said more straightforwardly now without the smile. "Not on purpose. The tables are close. I'm sorry about that, the way it ended." She said it like a statement, not a question. No theatrical sympathy. Just one person acknowledging that another person had a rough few minutes. Adrian set his glass down. He looked at her for a moment, reading her the way someone does when they've been caught off guard and are deciding whether or not to be guarded about it. Then he said, "It's fine. It happens." "Does it?" she asked. "Happen a lot. More than I expected when I started doing this again." She didn't press. She just nodded once, as if that was enough of an answer for now, and reached for her bread roll. He noticed she broke it in half before eating it the same way people do when they've been sitting alone long enough that small habits become automatic. A minute passed. Maybe 2. The background noise of the restaurant low music, the clink of glasses, a burst of laughter from a table near the bar filled the space between them without pressure. Then she said, "I'm Vanessa." "Adrian?" "Well, Adrian." She gestured at the empty chair across from her. "My table has more bread than I can finish, and yours apparently has an extra chair. I'm not suggesting anything dramatic. Just, it's a weird night for both of us, and sitting at separate tables feels unnecessarily formal at this point." He thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. Then he picked up his wine glass, stood, and moved to her table. They sat across from each other for a moment, without speaking, which somehow wasn't awkward. Vanessa broke off another piece of bread and set the other half toward his side of the table without making a thing of it. Adrian didn't take it right away, but he didn't move it back either. "So," she said, "what happened if you want to talk about it? You don't have to." "She left when she found out I used to be a single father," he said. It came out flat factual. He had said it enough times in his own head over the last hour that it no longer had any particular sting to it, or at least that was what he told himself. Apparently that's a deal-breaker for some people before they've even finished the first drink. Vanessa was quiet for a second, not the uncomfortable kind of quiet, more the kind where someone is actually thinking about what you said, instead of waiting for their turn to speak. She knew going in, she asked. It was in my profile, Adrian said. So either she didn't read it carefully, or she thought it would be different in person. I don't know. Either way, he turned his glass slightly on the table. It's not the first time. That's the part that bothers you, Vanessa said. Not just tonight. The pattern. He looked at her. Yeah, he said. The pattern. Vanessa set her glass down and leaned back slightly in her chair, not in a dismissive way, in the way someone does when they're settling in to say something they've thought about. People do that, she said. They hear one detail, and they think they understand the whole picture, like a single data point is a complete story. She didn't say it with outrage, just matter of fact, like she was describing weather patterns. It's lazy thinking. That's all it is. Adrian looked at her for a moment. He wasn't used to that response. He had gotten sympathy before the careful kind people who said the right words, while still keeping a certain distance, making sure their empathy didn't accidentally commit them to anything. What Vanessa was offering wasn't sympathy. It was something more direct than that. Most people don't say it that plainly, he said. Most people aren't willing to call lazy thinking what it is, she replied, and picked up her glass again. I've had enough of it pointed at me that I stopped being polite about naming it. He caught the edge of something in that. Not bitterness, but experience. Something personal, living just behind the words. He didn't ask about it yet, but he filed it away. The conversation shifted gradually the way conversations do when both people stop holding them at arm's length. Adrian talked more than he had planned to. He talked about the years when dating wasn't even a category of his life, when everything he had was organized around work and responsibility and getting through one day, and then the next. He talked about what it felt like to finally have enough stability to try again, and how he'd underestimated what the world would do with a man who had been through what he had. Not hostility exactly, just constant low-grade dismissal. He didn't say it like a complaint. He said it like a report, like a man reading from a field survey. And Vanessa listened the way someone listens when they recognize a landscape they've crossed before, even if they got there by a different road. You keep waiting for the reaction, she said when he trailed off. Adrian looked at her. What? Right now? You keep watching me the way you'd watch someone near an alarm you didn't mean to trigger. She wasn't smiling. She was just being exact. You're waiting for me to pull back. He didn't deny it. It's a reasonable thing to expect, he said. I know, she said. But I'm still here. She said it simply without weight, without making it into more than it was. Just a fact, just an observation about the current moment. The candle on the table between them had burned down to about half. Somewhere behind them, a table of 4 was getting their check and laughing about something. The restaurant was settling into its late evening quiet, the energy different, now slower, more honest. Adrian looked at her and didn't say anything for a beat. He had come into this night expecting very little, and had already gotten exactly what he expected from the first half of it. But this, the woman across from him, the bread on the table, the conversation that had moved from awkward to something he couldn't quite categorize, this was not what he had planned for. You said it's been pointed at you, too, he said finally. The lazy thinking. Vanessa's expression didn't change dramatically, but something in it acknowledged the question. She turned her wine glass once slowly on the table. Different detail, she said. Same logic. She left it there, not shutting the door, but not walking through it yet either. Just letting him know the door existed. Adrian nodded. He didn't push. He picked up the other half of the bread roll she had set near his side of the table earlier and broke off a small piece.